just plain right. Well, welcome to Thankful Thursday. It is Thankful Thursday. I am thankful for all of you, and we got a sound effect for that, so hit it, man.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
I think that's my favorite sound effect. I think it is. I mean, all of them have their moment, but that may be my favorite sound effect now. JP on the board. I'm thankful for you, by the way.
You got to be more thankful.
You got to be more thankful. Have you even said thank you once yet? That's hilarious. All right. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good enough. How about that? Ready for a show?
Ready for a show.
Ready for a show. Thankful Thursday. All right. Hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. So it's Thankful Thursday. You know what that means? Halfway through hour number 2, we bring in a couple of people that are in the background, but they help make this thing great. Butters and Lee coming on halfway through hour number 2 on a Thankful Thursday. And then we still got a triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, oh, man, we're going to talk about it. Playing some 4D chess with Iran. That's right. The conflict continues. No one knows yet where we're going to be on it. The indications are that Trump is very likely going to do something, but he is not letting his cards get too far away from the vest, if you know what I'm saying. But 4D chess with Iran, wait till I tell you some of the things that have been happening that you had not known yet. It's been incredible. So that's coming up. Number 1, Triple Dipper, 4D chess with Iran. Number 2, so I'm calling it Saving Kids. You know, for the last 4 years, I've had multiple times where I named a dipper something more along the lines of Save Our Kids. It is such a relief to me on this Thankful Thursday to be able to name it Saving Kids, because there are things that are happening, including a Supreme Court decision from yesterday, that clearly indicate we are turning the corner and we are finding more means and capabilities to actually be saving our kids. And that's a joy. So stand by for that one. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, you know, I just got to say, have you seen the big, beautiful flag? How do you feel about the big, beautiful flag? Because I think it's big. I think it's beautiful. It's our flag, and it's on the White House lawn now, and that is just way cool. So stand by.
You know, they're already claiming it's crooked. I've already seen left liberals claiming it's a crooked flag. So
if you know what, do we care what they think?
No, I don't. But I just think it's funny.
Think we care. All right, the big beautiful flag, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. Okay, listen, I'm going to move on into the Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys that attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. Stan McDonald is indeed the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way, and I will tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. Okay, so a friend of mine served in Kandahar, Afghanistan at the beginning of the war. We were both there at the same time. We were on different teams, but at some point we were back in the same spot together. And this friend of mine told me a story about one of the special forces guys that he was with who got attacked in close quarters in the streets of Kandahar and suffered a shot to the face. But the Green Beret that I'm talking about apparently immediately assessed his own wounds. He slapped something on it to stem the blood flow. He acquired his target and took out the enemy shooter. My friend told me the word on the street thereafter was, these Americans, you can shoot them in the face. They just fix themselves and then kill you. Makes me laugh. Look, there's no denying the quality of personnel we put in the field, right? But a lot of that boils down to training and equipping of that force. And a lot of it also comes from knowing your enemy. There's a lot of talk right now about what's going on in Iran. Are we going to bomb Iran? Are we going to follow through on what President Trump has been saying for 10 years, that Iran cannot be allowed to become a nuclear weapon state? There are those that are wringing their hands and claiming that any action at all is not what they voted for, but they will also tell you in a heartbeat that they would like to have peace. There are those who desire war too, in some kind of sick, fantastical way, that war is their steady state that makes things better. I'm here to tell you it's not. But like I said the other day, I don't believe that we are, quote, going to war in the normal sense. But I also don't believe that we are going to sit idly by and pretend that people who have done bad things for decades will suddenly not pose a threat if we just turn our backs. Not for a second. Now, having said that, Let me break down the Iran crisis into two categories. And so first, let's talk about our fighting posture, not the fight itself, but the fighting posture. And then let's add some historical context because knowing your enemy is important. These two things are a large part of what makes up where we are right now, our fighting posture and history. All right, so fighting posture. If you've ever had any experience at all with firearms, you know that like anything else, shooting is an acquired skill, right? In the military, anybody who's ever served in uniform has gone through basic marksmanship training. In the Marines, they have a saying that every Marine is a rifleman first. For many who enlist in the military, the use of firearms is their first exposure in the military to shooting of any type. And at least it's their first formal instruction. Basic shooting comes down to the basics, things like proper use and care of your weapon, body position, sight alignment, breathing control, trigger squeeze. But shooting at a fixed target at a known distance in the prone position under highly regulated conditions, that's just the introduction. The real fun, the real training, comes when you get to the point that you're able to do things like reflexive fire training. Being allowed to shoot, move, and communicate under more stressful conditions with the brain more fully engaged, like tracking your rounds, like reloading while you're still maintaining your fighting posture, like learning to stage your magazine so you can reload with your eyes closed or in the dark. And one of the most unnatural aspects of that is what is known as squaring off to your target. So here's the thing. If you're in an armed confrontation and your cover and concealment is not an option, then how you present yourself to the opposing target actually matters. The natural inclination is to slim your profile, maybe turn yourself to the side, provide less of a target by turning sideways. But when you're in combat and you're wearing body armor, the side panels of your ballistic vest, they provide very little impact protection. The true ability of your body armor to shield you comes from the protective inserts known as the SAPI plates that cover the vital organs in the front and the rear. So the training for those who wear armor is to do what is unnatural, to adopt a stance that requires you to square your shoulders to the enemy, face forward. It's also a stance, by the way, that shows the enemy you mean business. It's also, like I said, unnatural. It requires some training, and truthfully, it requires a measure of faith. Now, right now, anybody who believes that Trump should turn our nation's back or narrow our nation's profile, leaving us exposed, they're wrong. It doesn't mean we have to put boots on the ground, but it does mean that we do not leave ourselves exposed. We have to present a hard target. So what you're watching right now are things like putting carrier strike groups in the Gulf, making serious demands, prepositioning our air assets, upgrading our logistical hubs. Those are the national version, if you will, of squaring yourself to the target, presenting a ready and capable and defendable position to those who have said that they intend to do us harm. How you are when the moment of conflict or confrontation or challenge arrives is going to be largely dependent upon that level of preparation you put into the occurrence well before it even happens. And how much you're willing to trust your armor as an individual when you square yourself to the target to provide that measure of protection. Well, picture that on the big side. President Trump right now is ready, and rightfully so, to use the U.S. military. But in order to get there, in order to make sure that we've done everything we can do, he's positioning us so that our posture is squared off to the enemy. Anything less would be seen as weakness. It would literally make us more vulnerable. So yeah, squaring off to the target, it's both unnatural, it's also needed. It takes practice, but it also takes believing the armor will work. That's the first piece. What you're watching right now in the big picture is the United States squaring itself to the enemy. But then there's history. Okay, so who's the enemy? What do we know about them? Who are they? What do they stand for? Well, Sun Tzu, the Chinese philosopher and military tactician, he said, here's his quote. He said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. But if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Makes sense. You always look at your enemy. You try to get in his head. You recognize his motivations, his style, and his prior actions. It's no different than a coach watching game films of a team he's about to go up against next week. You learn their styles, you learn their capabilities. Except in this case, it's not a game, it's about life and death. Well, what does the history tell us about Iran? For thousands of years, the nation that we know today as Iran has been a thorn in the side of the Western world and the Middle East. The Persian Empire under King Xerxes attempted to conquer Greece. He failed. But the battle that we now know as Thermopylae with the 300 Spartans, that was their galvanizing moment that led to the formation of the Western world. Well, go ahead and take that, King Xerxes, Persians, fast forward to modern times, and the imperial state of Iran was an ally of the West until 1979. But the undercurrent in the Iranian society was a fundamentalist Islamic radicalism that wanted a theocratic control. The Ayatollah Khomeini was the leader of the movement who was living in exile, but the revolution in 1979, sparked by fighting in the streets and the murder of hundreds of innocent citizens in their nation, it led to the nation falling into chaos and the Ayatollah being flown into the country to take control right as the Iranian royal family fled. That was 1979. And just a short time later, the new Islamic Republic of Iran began setting the stage for war with the West. In November of that same year, the Ayatollah hadn't even been back but 6 months. In November of that same year, 1979, fundamentalist radicals, with the blessing of the Ayatollah, seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage. The hostages were paraded on TV, blindfolded, threatened, mistreated. President Jimmy Carter, the second worst president in American history, didn't understand the idea of squaring off to the enemy. He crawfished, he wrung his hands, he tried to appease them, he negotiated. Finally, realizing there was nothing else that could be done, Carter authorized a special operations mission called Operation Eagle Claw, a daring raid to go into Iran. I've met men who participated in that mission. Everything that could go wrong did wrong. But the problems were not the mission members. The problems were that we had never properly squared off as a nation to our enemy that was fine with holding 52 of our people hostage on the world stage. Ronald Reagan's the one who changed that. He guaranteed a new posture, and days after he was elected, Iran released the hostages. But since that time, 1979, Iran has continued to kill Americans. Just in the war in Iraq, we know of over 660 American soldiers that were killed because of Iranian influence. We know of Iran's direct involvement in the bombing of the USS Cole in October of 2000 that killed 17 U.S. sailors and wounded 40 others. We know of Iran's direct involvement with Hezbollah bombing the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut in 1983, killed 241 Marines. We could talk all day about Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. Don't think for a minute, by the way, that this conflict that you're watching right now with Israel and Iran, don't think for a second that this is new. Iran has been killing Americans for decades. And if they go nuclear, they are not going to stop. History dictates that they don't value life, especially American lives. So yeah, there's two things to consider here. When you're watching the news right now, recognize two things. One is all of the forward posturing that we're doing right now. That is the national version of simply squaring off to the enemy so that our body armor is in the right posture to protect us. That's what Trump is doing. It's also, though, by the way, about knowing the bigger picture, knowing the history. Don't get yourself locked into thinking, well, I don't know about this brand spanking new war with Israel and Iran. This is also new. It just sprung up last week. No, it didn't. It's millennia. It's thousands of years. And just in the last 40 years, we have seen literally hundreds of Americans killed by Iran. They hate us. That's just the truth. That's their history. So this big picture moment that we're in, it's a big picture moment. It is not finite. It is not small. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, I thought it was necessary to say that because what I'm not hearing anybody else say in the media right now is the big picture. It's important that we know the big picture. I don't want boots on the ground. I don't. But I also don't want anybody trying to portray this as being something that's so new. Why would we get involved? Why would we ever be there? Why do we care? It's just Israel and Iran. No, it's not. It's thousands of years of history. And they have hated America since they first became the Islamic Republic in 1979. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just bulletproof influence, man. Bulletproof influence. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so hey, listen, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it. Tell us what you think. I'm looking forward to your commentary. A few of you are already texting in, and I'll get those here in just a moment. Before I do anything else, though, I got to remind you, attorney Stan McDonald is the sponsor daily of the Right Side Way monologue. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And I like to say that, he's not only the kind of guy who can advocate for your legal needs, but he has absolutely been in the mix, in the trenches as a ruffian for years on conservative policies and politics. But yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. Stan McDonald, if he's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your enemies would have no greater foe. So you might need an attorney in North Alabama. I'm going to tell you how to reach him. You ready? Attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Oh, yeah. No representation made. The quality of legal service be informed is great. The quality of legal service for all lawyers. Shut my mouth.
Just another 10. What can I say?
I just, what do you do? It's a gift.
Or you've done it for 4 months now? So I think you finally got in a groove.
Finally got, did you just steal my moment?
Just kidding.
Text lines. What do we got here? Allie Mathen says, Colonel, this was outstanding. Well placed shot, sir. Thank you, my friend. Kevin from Huntsville says, Caroline Levitt did a White House briefing today, answering questions from reporters from all news agencies and outlets. There were lots of questions about Iran. Fox News is the only one that covered it. When you flip to MSNBC or CNN, they have their Trump-hating commentators telling you what you need to think about the president and his actions instead of letting you hear it directly from the White House. So if you watch these news networks, how do you make an accurate conclusion if you don't hear it for yourself? That's a great point, Kevin, and I'll be honest with you. I have said multiple times, you've got to develop your trusted sources. I would hope that all of y'all listening right now that this is a trusted source. I hope you also recognize that I have my own trusted sources. So when you hear me rattling paper on the microphone, that's me going to places like Red State, Daily Wire, Daily Signal, Daily Caller, all the dailies. I go to Fox News. I go to the Bongino Report, which, by the way, the Bongino Report's a big aggregator. It takes all kinds of different news sources and lumps them into categories so you can find them easier. And they take all the conservative ones. And then I go to places like, justthenews.com or Populist News. And I find those sources. You have to develop your own litany of resources so you can stay informed. And yeah, if you're an MSNBC person, well, you're not getting the truth. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all talk about this show. This show goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border now to what we call again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in too, just for good measure. That's just the radio audience. Then there's all kinds of y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and watching the live stream of the show on like YouTube or X or Rumble or Facebook or on our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you guys that podcast too. I just saw the numbers today, by the way. Butters ran a report for me. And in the last 90 days, our numbers have dramatically increased online. It's just something to watch. We appreciate you guys so much. So anyway, at least once an hour, I'm going to tell you, I'm thankful. Thank you very much. Lots of texts coming in. We'll get those in a moment. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. And then, so we were just talking a minute ago off the air. So listen, there's some language in these things. So I mean, I got to be careful what I'm advocating for, but I don't know where these AI videos are coming from. But there's one that came out of a Revolutionary War British soldier doing his video log of just getting absolutely waxed by these nasty colonials
who won't just patiently stand in a line and exchange fire. They're actually hiding behind trees.
Hide behind trees.
Like savages.
Who does that? They really don't like Texas.
Yeah, they really don't like Texas.
These things are cracking me up. But so, JP, you said you saw the one of Sasquatch and the Yeti going to Buc-ee's?
Yeah, I did, yeah. The Sasquatch ones are hilarious.
Oh my gosh. I don't know is this one person making all these, or is this like this? Everybody's got a Sasquatch app and they're running it.
I think it's just open season at this point. You go to the Google VO AI, I believe is the one, which by the way is the really scary, accurate one. But I think it's just a bunch of people making these ones.
Well, you made just a quick one of us the other day as babies. Like I'm sitting here at my microphone, you're sitting at your microphone, and we were talking about sherbet, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have to have a Yeti one or something. I don't know.
Well, I the Google VO ones that were making these history ones and the Sasquatch ones, those are the ones that like almost don't even seem like they're AI. They seem like they're it's hilarious, but then you're like, oh my gosh,
it's hilarious and it's creepy.
Yeah, but
like sooner or later, someone's gonna get in real trouble.
Yeah, they're lucky they're funny. They get a pass.
They're lucky they're funny. I'm just waiting for the one that's not funny and somebody thought it was real and somebody gets in trouble.
I think that's already happening.
Probably is. Bless you, Jesus. All right. But anyway, yeah, those are hilarious. Text lines before I go to my dipper stuff. Kimball from Harvest says, Phil, I'm so proud that we have a leader who embraces making hard decisions regarding war and peace. Those who are in opposition to the actions taking place in the Middle East fail to understand that these strikes against Iran's nuclear program are clearing the way for peace in that part of the world. Trump has always said that he prefers peace and no forever wars, but he's also decisive in the use of force and power. Peace through strength is truly an inspired concept that Ronald Reagan coined. It's still relevant today. Kimball, great text. Yes, I agree. And I'll be honest with you. I've, having my grandfather, my father, myself all served in a war zone, having my son on active duty right now, I don't want to see boots on the ground. I've seen enough boots on the ground. It was really kind of wild to me that I went to Afghanistan in the beginning of the war. My son was actually alerted for duty in Afghanistan, but then his whole squadron went. He's a cav officer, so his whole regiment was going, and his one squadron was peeled off and sent to the Sinai Peninsula for a peacekeeping duty while the rest of them went to Afghanistan. But it was amazing to me that the war that I was in the beginning of, as my son was a kid in like middle school, that he was potentially going to, that's how long that war lasted. 20 years at war? Come on. Now, it's a different posture if you think of it in terms of Korea. Korea, we're still there. The Korean War ended in the 50s. We're still there, but it's a different thing. We didn't ever set up Afghanistan that way. And by the way, we could have pulled back. We could have had forward posturing. We could have had good relations. We could have put our embassy inside of Bagram Air Base. We could have just said, here's where we're going to be. We're paying you rent like we do in Japan, like we do in Germany. Japan and Germany, we still have basing there. Why? Well, we set up at the end of the war. Why do we still have Gitmo? We still have Guantanamo Bay in Cuba because of the Spanish-American War. So these places that we are located around the world, sometimes they're because of our tail end of a conflict. We establish permanent basing because it gives us a forward presence, and that's okay. In your overall force posture, you want to know that you've got the ability to not have to fly over the horizon all the time. Sometimes you want to be able to, land and refuel and get a bite to eat somewhere closer to the war zone. There's nothing wrong with having forward basing. The problem we had with Afghanistan was there was never seemingly an end to the idea of armed conflict. We weren't getting into the basing mode. We were staying in the armed conflict mode for 20 freaking years. That being said, I don't think Trump's going to take us down that road. I don't. Why? Because he's adverse to it. Now, I don't think he'll let us get attacked and somebody get away with it. I don't think he'll go Joe Biden on it. I don't think he'll go Jimmy Carter on it. I don't think he'll go Obama on it. I mean, I look back and think, okay, good Lord. And while there may be things about the Bush era that I take issue with, at the same time, I prefer George W. Bush over Al Gore any day of the week. Can you imagine what would have happened if 9/11 occurred on Al Gore's watch? What would have happened? Well, that being said, ain't nobody out there that I know that's clamoring for the idea of bring Joe Biden back. We don't like Donald Trump enough. Well, maybe there's some. The true TDS symptomology is rampant in some circles, but by and large, I think we're going to have to trust that he's going to do what he says. He has said since the day he came down the golden escalator, 10 years ago yesterday, Donald Trump gave his opening remarks announcing his run for the presidency. One of the things in his platform he said in that speech was Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. He's been saying it since the moment he came onto the political scene. And I believe he still means that. I also believe that he's the guy who took out Soleimani. I believe that he's the guy who cleaned up ISIS. I believe he's the guy that probably drove several things to negotiation that could have gone to war otherwise. I do believe right now he is trying to force the issue of negotiations, but he's doing it from a position of strength. And we're going to have to watch and wait. So yeah, Jeff from Indiana says, hey, Phil, the problem with dealing with Iran is that it's a theocracy and common sense and good judgment do not apply. When you have people volunteering to be suicide bombers, tells me they don't care about their own life. They just care about achieving their goal, which is the destruction of infidels, which in their mind gives them glory of heaven. I'm afraid to say that anyone thinks that way is certainly not working for heaven. It sounds like they're destined for hell. And if we can help them get there, it's a good thing for the world. Jeff, great text. I'll tell you too, though, a lot of those suicide bombers, they're not doing it because they are committed to the cause. Some of them are actually doing it because their families are being held hostage, and if they don't do it, their families will be killed. So some of them are doing it to save their families. Wiley from Gunnersville, great monologue, Phil. Since before he was elected, I have prayed for our president every day. So I cannot fathom the burden that he carries in these recent days and nights. And while I fear all aspects of the U.S. getting involved in this war with Iran, I mostly fear the day after the strike that I believe we will make. And then the days and weeks after that. The previous administration allowed all manner of evil people into our country. And I believe it would be incredibly naive to think that there's not any evildoers that are here just waiting for a signal to act. God bless Donald J. Trump and God bless America. Wiley from Gunnersville. What a great text. Yes, that is true. I do believe there are probably any number of sleeper cells waiting for their orders, not just from Iran, who knows from where. I also think that we have to watch out for things that they're dynamic, not static, but they are also not dynamic in terms of explosions, but they can have equally forceful results. Things like cyber attacks on our infrastructure. Think about how much runs on electricity, the ability to get power to a hospital, the ability to get people to work, the ability for commerce to flow, the ability for water to flow. All of it depends on, the lights being kept on. Cyber attack. If you take down, by the way, in today's modern era, Almost every munition, every weapon system, every military vehicle is now reliant upon GPS. That's why the Chinese have been developing lasers that can take out GPS satellites. So that being said, you got to watch out for things like destruction of the GPS grid. Or how about this? Destruction of the phone grid. Or how about this? Destruction of the power grid. Any one of those things can cripple America, and they know it, and they don't have to launch a single missile. John, this is like doom and gloom here, man. John from Huntsville says, Phil, amazing monologue. Also, did you hear that World War III might be imminent? I did not hear World War III might be imminent. John, I did not. By the way, JP, your Braves are actually beating the New York Mets 2 nights in a row. Shabam.
They have.
John's all over the board today.
Yeah, World War III is imminent,
baseball.
apparently.
World War III in baseball.
But he also commented on the YouTube, by the way, said Philly need to get Donald Trump to fly a giant right side radio flag outside the White House.
Do we have a right side radio flag?
We don't.
We should. I like it. The big gold star. I like it.
Easy that can look like a communist flag there.
That does. If you change the right colors, it can look like a Korean flag. Jerry Vindicator says, definitely sighted in a paratrooper, airborne. Appreciate you, man. Oh, did I miss a preview? No, it's okay. Adam from Athens says, just finished your podcast with Mike Durant. It was a great interview. I made sure to send it to some family members. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. That one's starting to move forward as one of our top ever listened to podcasts right now. So, by the way, it was a great interview. Mike Durant's an incredible dude, but JP did an amazing amount of work on getting that thing in production and out on time. So we just recorded it, last Friday, and you had it out on Tuesday. It's huge.
Thanks.
Brian from Harvest, 2 more texts and I'll go into our stuff. Brian from Harvest says, I heard 2 interesting reports this morning online. One was a CNN broadcast where they had to admit that the 34 counts against Trump were just Democrats trying to mess up the election. Wow, really? Another one was Kash Patel saying how the Chinese Communist Party printed millions of fake U.S. licenses for people to use to vote for Biden, and that it was hidden by the FBI. Yeah, I'm waiting to hear more on that. I saw where Kash Patel said he actually found those files. They immediately declassified them and handed them off to Congress to review. More to come. And then last one before the break, Matthew from Washington checking in. Matthew from Washington says, hello, Phil and JP. Matthew from Washington checking in with y'all. Happy Thankful Thursday. Excellent monologue, sir. Iran is a country not to leave unchecked. On another note, he said, thankful is indeed what I am for all y'all are giving prayers to me and my wife so that our home would sell and sell quick. Well, that's exactly what happened. There it is. Give me some applause. Outstanding. Says 3 days on the market with multiple offers closing on July 30th. Glory be to God. And for everyone's prayers, we can almost taste and see the beauty of the South once again. LOL. Thank you again. Have a wonderful, thankful Thursday. Matthew, praise God. We're looking forward to you being back here, man. All right, take me to a break, JP. We're going to come back. I'm going to dive on in. 4D chess with Iran. Are we playing 4D chess? I think the answer is yes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. That's what we're doing. I'm going to quickly step aside and go to the phones. Rusty from Harvest is on the line. Hey, Rusty, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Phil?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks. What's on your mind?
So, like you, I've spent some quantity of time of my life in the armed services.
Well, thank you for your service.
I was, before the armed services, I was building atomic submarines in Hampton, Virginia, Newport News, Virginia.
Wow.
And then when I went in the service, I was in the Army. So I played a minor role, very minor role, in that failed rescue attempt in Iran.
Oh, at Desert One?
Oh, yes. Yes. But let's talk about how we got there. We got there because we had a fine president named Jimmy Carter who thought it would be a good idea to let the mullahs who'd been hanging out in France for decades go back to Iran. A lot of people didn't like the Shah, and so they let the mullahs. Well, Jimmy Carter's logic was, they're not communists, so we should let them travel back to Iran and do whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
Well, we know what they did. There were probably, 25 or 30 organizations in Iran who didn't like the Shah. Well, as soon as the mullahs got there, they started killing them off and taking over total power. And that's how we get there today.
Yeah.
They've been at war with us since 1979. And they haven't stopped. You know that, I know that. It's about time we put an end to it.
Well, and I think we're there. I mean, I'm watching right now. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking to you, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of Iran, is on Fox News talking about the fact that he believes their regime is actually near collapse, not because of the attacks, but because of the people just being fed up with them.
Oh, they've been fed up with them for a long time. Our argument is not with the people of Iran; it's with that so-called leadership that they have.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, can I ask too, what was your tangential interaction with Operation Eagle Claw, Desert One?
I had been a company commander in a missile maintenance unit in Alaska, of all places. Jimmy Carter shut us down. I came here to Alabama to go through the advanced course and continue on with the rest of my career. My battalion XO went to D.C. to work in his secondary field, which was as a foreign area officer.
Yeah.
And his foreign area was Iran. And I got a call from him one time, says, you got to help me with this. I can't talk to anybody else about it. I need data on the Hawk system.
How about that?
And I went and got it for him because we just sold the Shah a whole set of Hawk missiles, and they were all around Iran. And he needed that information that was all part of the whole planning process. How do we defend against that if we're going to make this rescue work?
How cool is that? Wow.
So, I went and got him his stuff and mailed it to him and asked no more questions.
Well, that's fascinating. And I'll tell you too, a little piece of history there is my grandfather, who was post commander at Redstone Arsenal when I was a kid, was one of the original project managers on the Hawk missile. How about that?
Oh, yes. Interesting how when I was here, when I started, after I got out of the advanced course, I was over in combat developments. And the Hawk project, soon after that, the Hawk project was celebrating the 25th anniversary of fielding. And within 6 months, the Patriot Project Office was celebrating the 20th anniversary of being a project. They hadn't bent any metal. They hadn't fielded anything, but they'd been called the Patriot Project Office for 20 years.
That's nuts. I worked on a project in the Pentagon that I can't talk about, but it was already a legacy project, and it had never even been in existence. Hey, I got to go, man. The air's the music play, but I appreciate your service. Thanks for your time. Thanks for calling in. All right.
Sure.
Thanks, Rusty.
Bye.
That's Rusty from Harvest. We have an amazing audience. There's so many connections out there. You have no idea who's like down the street from you sometimes. But anyway, appreciate the call, Rusty. Thank you very much. Real quick, before we go to break, Bill from North Alabama says, for what it's worth, Islamists don't sit on a capability. They use them immediately. True sleeper cells would already be acting, not waiting. Okay, point taken. So we don't have to be afraid of anything Iran anymore. Thanks, Israel. Bill, that's not a bad analysis. I will say this, though. The sleeper cells that came over here to do 9/11 still spent about a year and a half getting themselves ready. So the question is, are they here and are they ready, or are they here and are they preparing? I think they're here at some point. Let's just find them. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Hour number 2 coming up. thankful. It's Thankful Thursday. What you got? You about to, I think you're reaching for your mic.
Oh, well, we did just get a comment on the YouTube. We got Cody on the YouTube saying, first time watching on YouTube, listen almost every day. Love the show and what you guys stand for.
Thank you much. That's Cody, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Cody, appreciate you. Thanks so much for being a right side ruffian. We appreciate you, man. Look, I'm in this section right now. I'm calling it 4D chess with Iran. I took a bunch of input from you guys on the text messages. Let me dive into a few stories here that I think are pretty significant. First of all, there's a lot of talk right now back and forth. I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands a piece from American Military News dated yesterday. It says Iran warns of an all-out war if U.S. joins Israeli strikes. Iran warns of an all-out war. That's called rhetoric. I don't believe we're going to have an all-out war, but here's what they're doing. I can just tell you. They're trying to intimidate their neighbors. They went ahead and said things like, in their Wednesday interview with Al Jazeera. By the way, when I was in Baghdad, Al Jazeera, we actually used to watch their headquarters because if they rushed out the door to go somewhere, we knew something was up because they always got the word from the insurgents before they attacked Americans. Hey, come and report the story. We'll give you an exclusive. Oh, great. So if Al Jazeera is rushing out the door to get in their vehicles, something was up. Anyway, so the spokesman, who's his name, Ismail Baghaei, an Iranian foreign ministry spokesman, says, we have very good relations with our Arab countries, and they are very cognizant of the fact that Israel has been trying to drag others into the war. We are sure our Arab countries hosting U.S. bases would not allow their territory to be used against their Muslim neighbors. You know what that was? That's friggin' Baghdad Bob. That's what that is. That's trying to spin a narrative at the same time, trying to also intimidate the UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and any other nation where we might have some basing in the region. What they're trying to do there is go, I'm sure that you would not do anything like that. Now, would you, smaller country with whom we might take issue? That is absolutely meant to be a threat. And oh, by the way, it's not working because they don't seem to have any friends right now. If you've noticed, there's nobody rushing to Iran's aid. You're not seeing missiles being fired by Hezbollah, the Houthis, or Hamas right now, are you? Funny how that works out. You're really not seeing like any great shipments of arms coming in from Russia or China. Funny how that works out. Syria's of no help. Isn't that funny? I mean, all of a sudden, all of Iran's friends on the world, where's North Korea? I don't know. I thought that they were friends. Anyway, the bottom line is we don't seem to see any friends. You know why? Because in the posturing of 4D chess against Iran, before this bombing campaign took place, all those friends were nullified. The Houthis nullified. Hamas leveled. The beepers went off in Hezbollah, and everybody had a bad day. All of their proxies are out of the picture. They're on their own right now. Nobody else wants to be in the room with them. Now, Trump made the statement that he was calling for unconditional surrender. What does that mean? Well, that's what this article has. Daily Wire has a piece. Trump explains what unconditional surrender looks like. So let me just say this. If you look at the targeting, I'll caveat before I go to this by saying, if you watch the targeting of all the missiles going back and forth, we are watching an incredible amount of drone and missile launches going back and forth between the two, except that you've also got Israel actually flying missions into Iranian airspace. Notice, oh, by the way, they're flying over Iraq to get there. Okay. Notice they're flying over Syria to get there. Interesting. Notice, oh, by the way, that when they get there, ain't nobody shooting them down. Do you know that the Israelis have not lost a single plane? Why would that be? Because they have complete air dominance right now. They have complete air dominance. There is nothing being put up in the skies to conduct, air defense or to have some kind of retaliatory strike by any planes. You're not seeing that. Iran is relegated right now to launching missiles and drones. They have no air force. Their air defenses have been just basically relegated to nothingness. And Trump is saying unconditional surrender. What does that mean? Trump says to the press when they asked him, what does that mean? He said, unconditional surrender means I've had it. I've had it. I give up. No more. And then we all go blow up all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place over there. What he's basically saying is you need to surrender. Ayatollah Khamenei fired back on Wednesday, rejecting Trump's demand. He says he, for his weird rhetoric, the Iranian people surrender to him. I don't think the Ayatollah is going to surrender. What I could see is if it gets worse, if the people believe that they are safer by getting rid of the Ayatollah, I could see the Ayatollah being ousted by the people, and then the people turning around saying, hello, Donald Trump, we'd like to talk. But so far in the 4D chess, all of the preliminary work was done to take out the proxies, to remove the friends, to negate the air defenses, to stop the antiquated Air Force from being able to get off the ground. They have so far right now, Israel has killed at least 20 of Iran's top military leaders. They've damaged the key nuclear facilities. They have destroyed more than a third of Iran's missile launchers, and they've hit over 1,100 targets around Iran. The interesting dynamic here too is Iran is launching against civilian targets. Like last night, Iran attacked a civilian hospital. Israel is breaking Iranian capabilities. Iran's trying to break Israel's spirit. That's what they're doing. Iran's targeting is less than effective, and so they're launching into civilian spaces in the hopes that they can destroy the morale of the people of Israel. At the same time, Israel is doing whatever it takes so that the Iranians have nothing to respond with. In fact, I got a stat here somewhere. Let me find it real quick. Here it is. 400 missiles have been fired at Israel. This is Dateline yesterday. 400 missiles have been fired at Israel. 20 have impacted urban areas. Okay. 1,000 drones have been launched against Israel. Fewer than 200 have reached their airspace. Not a single one of them is impacted. That's an amazing stat. What that tells me right there is that we're looking at about a 85% ability of the Israelis to take out these attacks. Okay, here is one of the, this story, y'all, this story blows my mind. This story is amazing. So you remember the beeper story, right? The beeper story when all the Hezbollah leaders, oh, you know what? We need to carry beepers because we don't want to use cell phones because they'll know where we are, except they didn't realize that the beepers have been supplied by Israel. And at a given time, the signal went out and all the beepers exploded. Everybody who was wearing one on their belt suddenly got a critical mass injury. Well, that was amazing. And that took years to, guess what just happened in Iran? Got a story here from Red State. It's the only source that I've seen this, but it's a detailed source, and I have confidence that it's actually real. Said in the first 3 days of strikes, of course, we've gained air superiority, or Israel has, over Tehran. Not a single plane lost. We've got a number of things that have happened that have been key, but one of them is there were dozens of top Iranian military leaders taken out in one single airstrike. How did this happen, Phil? Pray tell, what happened? How do you have dozens in one place? Because they all got a phone call, told them they had to report to a command bunker, and then the command bunker blew up. How does this happen? It says what Israel did was created a fake phone call for 20 members of the Air Force senior staff, called them to a specific bunker in Tehran. This meant that there was no one then after the explosions of the bunker to give the order to fire back the initial salvo of 1,000 ballistic missiles that Iran had threatened to launch. That's why they didn't launch. The added bonus was the Iranian military leadership was essentially crippled from that very moment. So here's one of the things that's very interesting. The article points it out. It's one thing to place a fake call through Iranian channels. It's quite another to have the call be so realistic that every general who answered it fell for it and went to the meeting. Y'all, that is some serious 4D chess right there.
Well, I know we talked off air about, reports this was like a high level IRGC or some sort of special commanders.
I saw one story that said that.
Yeah, and if that's the case, if the Mossad was able to get at somebody at that high of a level to do something like that, then that's pretty dang impressive.
It is. I need to find that article again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what JP's talking about is that there are reports that the ability of Israel to coordinate that level of upper, level attack was because they had an inside man who was a senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps commander who was a deep asset for Israel. And the article I saw, and maybe you did too, is that they've already evacuated him and he's back in Israel and he's safe now. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the article exactly, but and I'm not sure if it's IRGC specifically, but bottom line, a top Iranian official was compromised, to Israel, which is amazing.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Iran launches hundreds of missiles. Most of them don't get through. They're just trying to hit civilian targets and demoralize the populace. Meanwhile, Israel is like luring people into bad places and blowing them up. Here's another one too. Townhall.com reports 2 days ago that Israeli military forces killed Iran's new wartime chief of staff, who had only been on the job for 4 days. The airstrike killed Major General Ali Shadamani, who had served as chief of staff for 4 days after he replaced General Hossein Salami, who was killed in the initial strikes. So basically, it sucks to wear a star on your shoulder right now in Iran. Like, you're an immediate target. 4 days on the job. Oh, boy's taken out. All right, listen, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. But this is absolute 4D chess. It is one thing to move your piece on the board. It's quite another to be able to think 5 moves ahead and to prep it all in advance and get it done. And that's exactly where we are right now with Israel and Iran. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Text lines, people. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Finishing up this segment on 4D chess against Iran. Jeff from Indiana checking in says, hey, Phil, speaking of 4D chess, President Trump said he was going to give it 2 weeks before they decided if they were going to strike Iran or not. I want to make a little wager that it don't happen. And it happens soon. That don't happen, and it happens sooner. Surprise my face. Surprise my so, did he mean to say surprise my face, or was he voice texting and it went bad?
I understand what you're trying to say.
I think I do too. Yeah, that came out today. President Trump is listen, that's part of the 4D chess. He is leaving Iran constantly on pins and needles. I love that. Constantly on pins and needles. They don't know what to do. They thought it would come last night. It didn't come last night. Is it going to come tomorrow? He says 2 weeks. Oh my God, 2 weeks. Jason from Oak Ridge is brand new in the text lines. I know who this is. Jason from Oak Ridge. I got you, brother. Hey, listen, glad you're checking in on the text lines. Put him in the assistant there for me, man. He says Jason from Oak Ridge. Jason, appreciate you, man. Animal. Roxanne from Harvest sent me a meme.
You gotta read Jason's text. He texted you some above.
Was there a text? I didn't see it.
He says, what about the big picture on the world floor with China's social collapse and their supplies to Russia, and now Iran war with Israel also interfering with supplies to Russia?
Old. I'm so sorry. I totally bypassed that. Let me read it again. So I'd heard part of it. What about the big picture on the world floor with China, social collapse, and their supplies to Russia, and now Iran's war with Israel also interfering with supply? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, okay, he's right. There's a lot of trickle-down effects. There's a lot of things that are happening. One of the things you're going to watch here is sanctions being put on Iran in a big way. Iranian oil is no longer going to be available to China, which loves to swoop in and buy sub-market level oil, and they're not going to be able to get it. And then social collapse, I assume you're talking about actual Iran. There's a very strong possibility of social collapse. The question is going to be, is it just society collapsing on the Ayatollahs, or is society going to collapse overall? And I think there's enough wherewithal within the people of Iran to where they can take down their Ayatollah regime and then quickly stand back up some form of governance. I know that the exiled government of Reza Pahlavi is still, just like desires to get back there. However they want to set it up, I don't care, as long as it's not the Ayatollahs. But that's their call, not ours.
Well, something not enough people are mentioning, if the U.S. does get involved, that I worry the Strait of Hormuz 10% of the world's oil goes through there, and I'm worried that the oil prices are going to go greatly up, and it's going to be a problem. And I'm just saying that is a factor that also needs to be considered. I'm sure the Trump administration is considering that, but it would,
And that's why we have 2 carrier strike groups there right now, protecting the straits, protecting the Gulf, and making sure that the wheels of commerce don't get shut down by Iran trying to do something stupid. Good point. That's also why we trying to shut down the Houthis, launching missiles at ships.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you got crazy people like the Houthis in such an important spot right there, the port of the Red Sea.
Here's that story we were looking for. Just got it from, is it Roxanne? Hang on a second. I can close this so I can see it. It was Roxanne from Harvest sent a copy of the story. Yeah,
Quds Force Commander. Yeah.
Okay, there he is. The IRGC's Qud Force Commander. That's basically their special operations guy, General Ismail Khani. It says is confirmed safe in Israel. It can now be revealed that he was an Israeli asset providing intelligence that led to the elimination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah leaders Nasrallah and Safieddin. That's if that's accurate, that would be interesting. Can you look up his name? See if you find his name anywhere else, Ismail Khani, and we'll figure it all out. Amazing audience. You guys are, listen, I learn stuff by this audience every single day. Trump did say that he has a plan already approved. We know he's been in the Situation Room a lot lately. We know his national security team is going to have a plan. We also know, by the way, I got a piece here from Red State. Dateline last night. The top of the line aircraft carrier, the brand spanking new USS Gerald Ford, has been deployed to the Mediterranean. So it's headed to the Med, and it's yet another movement of forces as the Iran-Israel conflict heats up. It's, by the way, it's an 1,100-foot nuclear-powered carrier expected to be sent like ASAP, and all said and done, it is taking an entire new level of force posturing for the U.S. And then last one I've got here is Trump did approve his plans. Another article from Red State. His plans have been approved, but he will not announce when it's going to take place. Well, and he shouldn't. I mean, hey, sir, when's the big surprise going to not be a surprise anymore? Well, stay tuned. That's why he's saying 2 weeks, sometime within the next 2 weeks. It's going to be quicker than that. I agree with Jeff. I think it's going to be way quicker than that. All right, right for the break, David at Bucky says, Phil, the way I read the text, Trump may give Iran 2 weeks to come to the table, but he left the door open to act when he's ready. And when he does, you can just say checkmate. There's that 4D chess. And yes, sir, moving to checkmate. All right, you guys, 4D chess with Iran. We'll let you know if there's any breaking news while we're on the air. In the meantime, coming up next, Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. I'm saying, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show, this one. I mean, it goes straight on from Huntsville to Chattanooga and from Tuscaloosa down to Gadsden, all the way over to the loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, and straight across the border to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning, and big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. I'm tripping because I look over the screen and the camera keeps coming and going because you're adjusting the camera because we have the Butters in studio and one camera decided not to work, so now we have one camera catching both of us.
Hey, but this is, I think this looks, I mean, you're on the same camera.
It's chummy. We're in the same scene.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell you what, we're going to go ahead and jump on into a segment we do every single Thursday. It's Thankful Thursday. On Thankful Thursday, we're thankful for people, and some of whom are constantly doing things to help make us better. And two of them come in every Thursday, halfway through hour number 2, and we run a segment together. We just ping out the questions and see where the answers fall. That being said, let me call the roll. Looking north to Huntsville, that dynamic diva of divine diatribes, Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
I'm here.
You are indeed, and we're glad. We're thankful. And then right here in the studio, sharing camera with me, silky smooth like his call sign, Mr. Butters. How you doing?
Happy to be here, sir.
Indeed you are. We're thankful. Give me some whoop-whoops. All right, we got some Butters and Lee going right now. So let me jump on in. I'm going to go with the first question. I'll segue straight off the last segment we just did, you guys. So here's the deal. The world's watching right now as Trump weighs possible U.S. military action against Iran. A lot of chatter out there in the blogosphere, a lot of chatter in social media that somehow or another the GOP base is now split. So my question for you is, are we really split? Is this a defining make or break moment? If he strikes Iran, is it danged if he do, danged if he doesn't? Is the GOP base going to split? I'll go to you first, Lee. What do you think?
I think somewhat, because there is a not small portion of the GOP that does not want any more wars. They were sick and tired of the constant, money funneling to, the wars in Ukraine, and even the beginning of the war, what we're seeing now come to fruition in Israel. So, yeah, there's that part of it. There's the endless funding. There's any possible boots on the ground, which is a big no for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think that starting another war, if you will, or I don't know if it's going to end up being a war. So yes, I think that there would be some fracturing depending on how it happens, but I agree with President Trump. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They can't. They are such an instigator in that part of the world and a funder of terror as a state. I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the government, that they can't have a nuclear weapon. They'd go after Israel first thing.
Okay. All right. I hear you. You think there could be some fracturing. Butters, what do you think, man?
I think in general, what you're seeing is the truth of the existence of what the conservative side of things actually is, which is not a cult. It is not a, cohesive beast like the left seems to be. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons why so many left the left, thinking of RFK and a lot of those kind of folks that were like, yeah, I'm done. And I think what we're seeing is the reality of what the right actually is. We're not brain dead. We think for ourselves. We have differing opinions. I think from the fear of war, the whole can't have nukes. I think there's a lot of people going, well, remember that whole WMD thing and all the other things, like, where's the proof? And we want to just have a conversation about before we actually go get into something else. And I think you're having folks on the right that are actually having a conversation, which is what we need to have.
Okay. Let me stick with the politics of it though. And I'll stay with you for a second. Is this a make or break thing? I mean, is it if he strikes Iran, are we going to see a bunch of Trump supporters suddenly leave him on the single issue?
No, I mean, I think the alternative has become so atrocious. I think it will cause, well, honestly, I don't know that it'll change a whole lot. I think the reality is we've got a lot of uncertainty in our country right now. I think there's a lot of folks that are going, yeah, I mean, like what is your alternative?
Okay, so Lee, let me ask you that same follow-up question. Is the faction of the Trump base that doesn't want him to do anything militarily, are they willing to leave him on this one issue and withdraw their future support for any other issue because of this?
I don't know if you're talking about a few strikes. I think that's less likely. But if you're talking about any boots on the ground, I think you're going to start to see a bigger faction of people say no. I mean, the right is really loosely held factions, or not that loosely, but somewhat loosely, of people with differing ideas. The left is more of a monolith, So I think that, there might be a portion if it went further than, say, a few strikes to take out certain, things that are needed for their program. But Israel wouldn't have struck had they not been close. They've done this before. This is something they've done many times. They have killed scientists. They have literally, by riding on motorcycles and sticking a bomb on a car and driving. Like, they've done everything you can imagine. They're very creative. They've hit facilities. They've done it, using computers. I'm just saying that this is something they specialize in because they know the minute that Iran can, they will strike Israel. They will.
All right,
and they're just not willing to let it get close.
Butters has got something he's clamoring to say. What you got?
So just the one concern I have that I'm seeing.
She was filibustering again. You saw it.
The phrase that's come out, the concept of the woke right, and maybe that's a bad way to call. Huh. But the blind followers that I see out there, particularly that are going after trying to cancel people simply because they would dare to question, that scares me a little bit. Because just like every group, there are people that don't have brain stems that are just going to blindly follow. And but I'm glad Trump's in there. At least he actually knows how to negotiate.
Yeah, I'd rather have him than the alternative. All right, so I got to go one more follow up on that before I can even leave it. So real quick, like with a short answer, Lee, if U.S. assets are attacked, if Iran says we're going to, and like we haven't even bombed anything yet, but if Iran says kaboom and they blow up, a carrier strike group in the Gulf, or they have something that takes place on a oil platform that's U.S. interests involved, are all bets off at that point? What do you think, Lee?
Somewhat, yeah. They're. I think they just need to aim at the government and take them out. The people really want to be free of them, and I think they would be an asset to us later.
All right, what do you think, man? If they attack U.S. assets?
I mean, I'm a Navy guy, so I could have a whole hour-long conversation about what conditions, do we provoke, freedom of navigation, roll on through the Straits of Hormuz and see what happens. I could see a pretty good argument for that, but don't necessarily be provocative with hopes that they do something stupid.
No, I don't mean like lure them into it. I mean, if they did, does that suddenly change the dynamic? And the people who are not supporting Trump on military action would have to say, well, we support you now.
I think that's definitely possible.
I don't know if I have time for another question. I think I do. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to change the subject. Here's the deal. You guys, Portland and Los Angeles and potentially soon Chicago are just in serious riot control mode right now. It's just unreal. These liberal sanctuary cities are seeing Antifa and pro-Palestine and pro-illegal alien riots, like full-on riots. And yet the left is still claiming that Trump's the one to blame and that the military on the ground is unwarranted in controlling the environment. Lee, your thoughts on that? We only got about 2 minutes here. What do you think? Is this a good thing to have the military there or not?
Yes, I mean, if they're protecting ICE agents in federal facilities and are not aggressors, then yes, because we could have used them in other places where federal facilities were damaged or burned down or whatnot, in other cities. So yeah, I think it's fine as long as they're used responsibly. But these Democrat cities need to, they got to get a hold of themselves. They're going crazy.
Butterman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they need to get a hold of themselves.
You want a carrier strike group to sail into LA, don't you?
I can't. I don't think we can say that on the internet. It's nuts. But it's what they do. It's a playbook that they seem to really fall back on, and I think they're going to keep going and going and going and cause as much disruption as they possibly can. But they ain't doing it around here.
But so you don't have any problem with the military being used like this right now?
So far, it seems like it's working. Working fairly well and not escalating. Life,
limb, or property. That's what Title 10 says they can go and defend. President has that purview. It's legal. That's why they're able to do it. But I can't help but think that at some point, someone is going to get seriously injured or killed, and Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom and all these other liberal just bloodsuckers are going to have to face the music for allowing the environment that Trump's having to go in and control. All right, that's it. That's round one. Butters and Lee. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We come right back with flipping the script, and they ask me the questions, and I just wait and see how it goes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. Okay, so we're going back to round 2 of Butters and Lee because it's Thankful Thursday. Lee, I'm thankful for you. First question to me, what you got?
I'm also thankful for you.
Thank you very much.
Have you seen where the Alabama GOP is considering a rules change, allowing John Wall to run for lieutenant governor while taking a leave of absence?
I did see that.
My question for you is, and I really don't know which direction I fall on this, do you think this type of rule change opens the door for kind of financial conflicts of interest? Because you can step away, run a campaign, collect donations, raise funds, and you know who gave it to you and who didn't, but then jump right back into being a chair where you determine ballot access, you know?
Well, he doesn't determine ballot access by himself. It only happens by a vote of the executive committee. So it can't be
True.
that he would have purview over by himself. So, and I don't think that's going to wind up being a thing. No, I think John Wall is going to be clear on this. I mean, if he takes a leave of absence, he's going to step away. And when you say, what do you mean by he'll know who your donors are and then have ballot access? What are you saying?
Well, I'm just saying there may be, could it not kind of stir up discord if people he thinks should donate to him don't, but then they're running. I don't know. I just feel as if stepping away instead of resigning makes me a little uncomfortable.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if he resigned, would you feel better?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would.
Well, and that may wind up being the way he goes. I don't know. I'd be honest with you. I don't think this is going to wind up being a big thing because I think he's going to wind up. He's been duly elected as the state party chairman. That was a huge deal, a vote of the state executive committee, and if he steps away to run for office, which is everybody else's right to do,
right.
Question is, so I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying. I guess you're more concerned with the idea of it being a leave of absence as opposed to a mere resignation. Huh.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to hold this back to the side, but then again,
what happens if he gets reelected?
I don't really know him that well, but I do. I know that he is the chair, the Republican chair, and he does work hard at it, and he seems to be good at it. I'm just saying, to me, ethically, I would think someone like that would need to resign and not just take a leave of absence.
Hang on a second. I'll say this: he's going to have to. He's going to have to, first of all, be subject to whether they want the rule change or not. He's going to have to be subject to whether or not the state ethics committee finds there to be an ethical violation, because immediately upon declaring himself as a candidate, he's going to have to do his filings, and the ethics committee the commission is going to have a right to speak if they see a conflict, which I'm sure he's going to be checking out ahead of time. So I think he's going to wind up being clear. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be comfortable, but he's going to be clear. But go ahead, bud. What you got?
So I'm completely thinking out loud here. So it may be even incomplete thought. Does that mean that anyone that ran for office that's accepted campaign funds shouldn't be able to run for or for the chair of the Republican Party because of the same dilemma?
I don't think so. And and truthfully, on a lower level, I was the state senator for Etowah County, and I was the Republican Party chairman for Etowah County at the same time, and I don't think there was a problem with that.
But I understand Lee's concern. That is a tough one. But where does it end, I guess, is my thought.
Yeah. We got to be willing to talk about these things. And do you think he'll win?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I didn't read the 1819 article yet. I saw that it's up, but I haven't had a chance to look at it. What rule are they changing? Is there a rule, Lee, that says that you can't do that? Or are they going to suspend it? Or are they looking at whether or not there's a rule? What are they saying?
I think it's, I only skimmed it. I think they're just trying to determine if someone can take a leave of absence while running versus, because I think it's the leave of absence part is not clear.
Okay. All right. Well,
but I'm not. And do you think he'll win?
Wait, hang on. Is that a new question? Do I think he'll win the election for
lieutenant governor? Yeah.
I think he'll be a viable candidate on day one. And I'm not going to be a bit surprised if he doesn't come in with a Trump endorsement too.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. He brings a different dynamic. He's going to come in as a guy who's been absolutely involved in state politics, but a guy who has not been a politician. So it's going to be interesting. And he's on stage with Trump all the time. So I think he's going to bring a dynamic that the other most viable candidate beyond him, I believe, is Wes Allen, Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And Wes is a good dude. I know Wes personally. I think a lot of him, been on the show multiple times. But I think that John Wall will be an immediate, runner for the position, pretty strong, if he can get this rule change or if he resigns. I got to go to Butters for a lot of time. Hey, man, what you got?
So jumping on Iran, switching over to Taiwan. So we get mired up in meddling with Iran. Does that open any doors to embolden or encourage the Chinese to say, well, y'all are meddling in other countries and we're going to take advantage of this, not to mention if we end up with assets more strung out?
Are you saying that if we bombed Iran, are you questioning whether that would embolden China?
Does that open a door and embolden China and open an opportunity for that?
Me personally, I think it dissuades China. I say that because I think China will look at it and go, oh crap. He doesn't just draw red lines and then do nothing. He actually does something. I think they'll also look at it as, oh crap. He didn't go all in and do a forever war like George Bush did. He's just basically he's done a one and done, and he could do that somewhere else if he had to. I don't know, man. I mean, so me personally, I think that it doesn't per se embolden Iran unless we wind up having to divert so many assets to a major broadening conflict in the Middle East that we didn't see coming. But if it's just like a bombing run, taking out a nuclear facility, sorry, Khomeini, you got a new job now. But then I don't think China does anything. I think they're dissuaded at that point because they're looking at somebody who's a hardliner and willing to pull a trigger. I'm hoping one shot, one kill. That's what I'm looking for. I don't mean it that way, but you know what I'm saying.
That stretches us across three fronts. So Ukraine, Israel, and then possibly Taiwan. They could be looking at spreading us thin and taking advantage of that.
When have we not been there before? That's why we've been pulling troops out of Syria and not sending troops to Ukraine. So yeah, I think it's a dicey situation, but I'm much rather have this guy in charge than to have Joe Biden. Thank you guys. That's it. Appreciate both of you. Butters and Lee every Thursday. Thankful Thursday. Thankful for you both. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. welcome to hour number 3 on a thankful Thursday. Thankful for all of you. I got a bunch of thankful texts I got to get to real quick. So let me jump on those real quick and stay caught up. John from Huntsville's chiming in, says the butter man was spot on today. Definitely in the running to beat today's winner. Well, now. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, Phil, here's my question to you. If Kamala Harris and the Democrats would have gained power, what does your crystal ball say that Israel is doing? Would they survive to the next election, or would we have seen them have to do a targeted first nuclear strike on Iran? Hang on a second. I think what would Israel be doing? Okay, I see it. It's a great question. I've thought that several times. What you about to chime in? What do you got?
No, it's hard to tell because I feel like Kamala herself said that she was pro-Israel, but then I don't know. The Democratic Party appeared to be anti-Israel. I don't know. Personally, I don't know if there would have been much difference. It may have been, even more reckless and stupid, and I don't know. It would have been a dumb move either way. I can't really. It's hard for me to tell if they would have just done nothing or gone way too far overboard, and we'd be in a forever war with Iran again.
I think that Israel would have had to take action, knowing they did not have the support of the United States. I think Israel would have done what it had to do to support Israel, because that's Israel first for them, and rightfully so. So I think that Israel very likely would have been in the same position. Iran, though, probably would have been further along. This might have happened quicker, but I think that some of the sanctions and things that have been going on since the Trump administration took office have maybe slowed the tide slightly, but not much. So I think that the bottom line is, Jeff, to your question, looking in my crystal ball, if there had been a Kamala Harris administration, I think that Israel would have still had to do what Israel's doing. And then he asked the question, would Israel, because a lot of people believe that Israel does have a nuke, but they've always been like quiet about it. I thought
it was like common knowledge Israel had a nuke. Am I wrong?
I thought, well, if it's open about it now, I'm not aware, but my thought was that Israel does not openly acknowledge whether or not they have nukes. They're widely believed to have them. But nonetheless, I don't think they would have used it, but I don't think they would have held it in abeyance if it meant they were about to be destroyed. So the end result is the whole world dodged a bomb by having Trump get elected. That's all there is to it. Dave from Capshaw says, negotiating with the Iranians reminds me of Ike Clanton in the movie Tombstone. Time after time, Ike talked tough. Then when confronted, he backed down. Then as soon as the pressure was taken off him, he'd go back on the attack again. Yeah, Ike Clanton. You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me. That movie's so full of good lines.
Yeah, but if you say one, then we're going to say like 10 of them. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole.
Johnny Ringo, you look like someone walked on your grave. I can go all day with this, man. Yeah. Why, Johnny, I did not know you were still there. You may go now. Marshall from Dubai sends me a, what is he sending me? What is this? It's a picture of somebody. It says Mike Judge.
Read the text above it.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's more. That makes more sense. Phil, Israel has always been extremely efficient when it came down to military operations. On June 5th of 1967, Israel launched a preemptive strike on Egypt, killed almost all of Egypt's pilots because they knew what building they would be having breakfast in. Wow. Said, I absolutely love military history and tactics. Oh, by the way, tell Butters he looks like Mike Judge from King of the Hill.
Kind of see it, I guess.
There it is. All right.
From King of the Hill. It's funny.
C. Kelly from Huntsville. C. Kelly says, what concerns me are Iranians terrorists trained here through Biden's open borders. Are they trained here? What was he saying? Are they here and training? Are Iranians terrorists trained?
I guess just what you said is that terrorists that came in through Biden's open border.
Yeah, and yes, I think that's one of the chief concerns. We talked about it yesterday. You and I on the air saying how many there are hundreds of millions of illegal aliens, millions of them are gotaways, hundreds were known to have been caught who were on the terror watch list. How many got through that we didn't catch that would have otherwise been on the terror watch list? It's definitely a thing, man. And I can tell you right now, Kash Patel and Department of Homeland Security got their hands full right now. What you got?
Well, but also the courts are fighting to keep those people here, so it's
Yeah.
but also like there's a balance of being aware of that and being knowledgeable of that, but also if there are what the terrorists want is for people to walk around in fear.
That's
So
right.
not let it consume you and be
Great point.
so overwhelmed and scared. But,
That's right.
Just something to be aware of and not to be stupid and keep your head on a swivel, I guess.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
also like do not be fearful because that's what they want.
Keep your head on a swivel, keep your powder dry, be aware of your surroundings. Don't be the victim. It's like what I always, the analogy I used the other day was like I taught my daughter, if you're walking out of Walmart at night, you don't stick your head down in your phone while you're walking to the parking lot. You keep your head up and look around because the bad guys see that as someone who is less approachable.
That's what drove me nuts. I saw what in Israel struck like on Thursday or Friday of last week, something like that. And then it was the weekend of the big parade. And I saw many people like Charlie Kirk and a bunch of conservative influencers putting up tweets of like, stay away from the big cities this weekend. I'm like, that doesn't, come on. Like that just drives fear in people. And I don't know. I don't like it when that narrative starts to,
Agreed. Danny from Pinhook, Alabama says, hey, Phil, in my opinion, Trump's playing this in the best possible way. He's leaving the door open for negotiations, at the same time moving more firepower into place to take care of the alternatives. Yep, there you go, man. That's part of that 4D chess. You move your pieces, but you leave things in a place where you can do what you got to do, and they don't know what you're going to do. Brad from Madison says 10% of the oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz. Another reason to drill U.S. Oil, 0% goes through the Straits at that point. Yes, good point. Cody from Hartselle says, long text here. He says, this is Cody in Hartselle. I don't personally understand why he would have given Iran 2 more weeks, but I'm also intelligent enough to understand Trump is privy to information that we'll probably never know. I pray for God's guidance for him frequently, and I trust his judgment. I also think it's okay, he says, to admit that we can have disagreements with some of his decisions, such as his decision to extend the time frame on the TikTok deal today. I hadn't seen that. That's a law that was passed by a bipartisan Congress, signed by a sitting president, upheld by a unanimous Supreme Court. If that app ever had any good things about it, they're long gone. Today, it's purely Chinese poison for young and easily influenced minds and should be banned, in my opinion. Wow. He ran the gamut on that text, but I get your point. And one of your main points is we can agree to disagree on some things. It doesn't mean that we wanted the Kamala Harris to step back in. What you got?
Exactly. And this is the great conversation amongst conservatives, because Ted Cruz and Tucker had their big debate where they went at it. And
that was weird.
And well, I thought it was great because it's like, these are healthy conversations to have. It's like, we can disagree on things and still be supportive of, like if a marriage is good 90% of the time, y'all fight maybe 10% of the time. You don't get a divorce because of the 10%, sort of thing. And I don't like the people like Laura Loomer, who's like, I'm going to be Trump's loyalty police, and I'm screenshotting everybody who's having any sort of criticism of Trump's, policy right now, and they are no longer MAGA. It's like, that's not how this works. We won the last election bringing in former Democrats. So it's like, we can have healthy debates and conversations and when we disagree, but then that also doesn't mean you're no longer MAGA.
Well, at the same time, just the opposite of that is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's speaking next week in Huntsville. She put out a post that said, if you agree with Trump on attacking Iran, then you're no longer MAGA. And I'm like,
that's not good either. And
come on.
And I don't know. I also think it's important to stand on principle instead of, I don't think it's smart either. Kind of like what Butter said earlier, to like, whatever Trump says, I just blindly agree with it, because Trump's not going to be president next time around. You got to have principles of your own that you can carry on from president to president, which is where disagreements a lot. But anyways, a long way to say, I think healthy disagreements and conversations is what is needed in our party.
Absolutely. Last text, and we'll go to a break. Adam from Athens. My hypocrisy only goes so far. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer, he says. I
love the quote too of nope, I hate him. I know I hate him. I think I hate him. Nope, I hate him.
Yeah, that was, look, darling, apparently Johnny Ringo is an educated man.
Yeah.
That movie is so amazing. All right, listen, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. I'm going to jump into Dipper number 2, saving kids. Y'all, changing the subject, but yeah, Saving kids. We've seen some big stuff happen in the last 24 hours. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Man, I'm saying bulletproof influence. That's where we are. JP, is it my imagination or is there blue sky outside the window? Is that blue sky?
Well, don't. It can change about 5 minutes, so don't get too attached to it.
It's like we live in Seattle right now.
Yeah, it's what's the saying? April showers bring May flowers. I think it's May downpours hopefully bring June.
Well, we're in June, so it's July.
I guess it is June. I can't even keep up with what month it is.
Well, maybe the 4th of July will be nice and cool.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, we're going to switch gears now. I gotta go lawyer Phil for a few minutes and talk about a decision that came out of the Supreme Court of the United States yesterday. I touched on it yesterday because it was breaking news, but I had to dig into it a little bit more today and see where we are. Listen, Alabama is one of the few states that took a decided stand against the idea that surgically or medically altering children was ever going to be a good idea. We stood up on the issue. We said, ain't no way on our watch it's going to happen. So our state law passed by our legislature, it was called the VCAP bill, the Vulnerable Child and Protection Act. VCAP became the law of the state and was immediately enjoined in part and then allowed to continue and then continue to be fought. And overall, our law has stood up, but it was still in litigation. Tennessee passed one very similar. Their bill, Senate Bill number 1, which was passed, I think, in 2023, their bill went to court, same as ours. The Supreme Court of the United States looks at what it will take up on certain issues, and if the issues are matching, then it picks one. Sometimes it takes them in an aggregate. Sometimes it takes them one at a time. In this case, they took Tennessee's. So Alabama contributed to the arguments in favor of upholding Tennessee's right to pass such a law because we passed our own. Well, Populous Times, Dateline yesterday. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Tennessee law banning medical gender transitions for minors, setting a precedent that other states could use to also ban chemical and surgical mutilation of children. Y'all, this is a huge day. That's an applause line, by the way. That's a huge applause line. This is something we've been talking about on this show since the day we went on the air 4 years ago. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for the majority. It was a 6-3 decision, by the way. Says the case carries with the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field. The voices in these debates raise sincere concerns. The implications for all are profound, he said. But then he pointed out that Tennessee had successfully argued that the law could withstand heightened scrutiny because the state had a compelling interest to protect children. There you go. You see, the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution, number 10 in the Bill of Rights, it clearly delineates the rights of states in the absence of federal law to the contrary to enact laws that are designed with a compelling interest to protect its citizens. In this particular case, Alabama's VCAP bill, Tennessee's Senate Bill 1, yes, we have a compelling right to do so. And here's the interesting thing. I pulled an article from Daily Signal about the same thing. Daily Signal, I would say after reading through this, Daily Signal's report's one of the best ones. Headline, Supreme Court says the Constitution does not second guess the people on gender affirming care. What does that mean? Well, nowhere in the Supreme Court's decision did it say you can never do transgender surgeries on minors. It didn't. I wish it did, but it didn't. What it said was, much like the abortion decision we got a few years ago, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, what it says is the states have a right to enact laws that prevent it from happening. If the states believe, under the powers granted them by the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, under their own state constitution, in enacting their own state laws through their state legislative process signed and enacted by their governors, if the states take a stand and say, ain't no way on God's green earth we're going to let kids be mutilated in our state, Supreme Court of the United States says, go for it. You can do that. Supreme Court did not say California cannot do that. It didn't say California cannot allow these procedures. It said that Alabama and Tennessee and a couple of others are allowed to stop the procedures because it's a matter of states' rights and state sovereignty, and we have a compelling interest to protect kids.
Inside too on this, obviously 6-3 was kind of expected, the 6 conservatives against the 3 liberal judges, but somebody did point out 2 of the 3 dissenting judges don't have kids of their own. So that may, it's like, I wonder if that would change their outlook. I mean, Ketanji Brown Jackson has 2 kids, but she's kind of liberal. You know, she'll vote liberal on anything. But I don't know. I wonder if Sotomayor and Kagan had kids of themselves, they would have a little bit of a different perspective on things.
Interesting dynamic. I didn't know that. The other piece too is Ketanji Brown Jackson during her confirmation hearings declined to say what a woman was.
So
she was already a given.
Yeah.
If you can't define it in the law, then why do you care what happens? She should have recused. Okay. Anyway, every Supreme Court decision, by the way, has 2 parts. You have the judgment. That's where they actually say yes or no, right? But then you have the opinion. The judgment comes out and it says yay or nay to the thing being argued, but then it gives an opinion. And like I said, Roberts actually authored the opinion. If the Chief Justice authors it, it's going to be weighty. And Roberts pointed out in his opinion, affirming the majority, that there are several European countries that were all on board with the so-called gender affirming care for a while, and then they're all off of it now. He said it raises significant concerns regarding the potential harms about puberty blockers and hormones and surgeries to treat transgender minors. What he's basically saying is there's a lot of discussion, a lot of evidence, a lot of things to the contrary. In other words, there is no settled debate on whether these things are even safe to do to kids. So certainly a state can have a right to govern whether or not they are going to happen within their own state borders. Now, listen, I got to tell you, when we get back from the break, I got to unpack this a little more, because saving kids, this is a huge deal. But one of the things that really strikes me is that the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Alabama actually fought our VCAP bill for a while. Fought our VCAP bill. And the Northern District of Alabama, the U.S. Attorney was appointed by Trump. Why would you fight that? I'd quit my job first. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all have talked about this show. This show. Whew, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border, what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, tuning in to us live streaming every single day on places like YouTube and X and Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, the podcast crew, all y'all podcast crewers, we thank you. We appreciate you. There ain't no way in the world this would be worth it if y'all weren't there. So thank you very much. Thankful Thursday. I'm thankful. You got a Thankful Thursday sound effect? I just think I need to hear it again. Play it.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Now I need Taco Bell. I haven't had Taco Bell in years.
You've never seen Talladega Nights, you said. Yeah,
I've never seen.
Wow, that's impressive. Actually,
I don't know. I've never been able to stomach Will Ferrell for very long.
Really?
I'm
oh
sorry.
man!
Now, with the exception of Elf. Elf cracks me up.
Elf is good.
Elf was good. But I think Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler, I can only take them in measured doses, and Jim Carrey, I can only take them in measured doses.
That it's like a very borderline obnoxious comedy style. I can understand that.
And I think they're the same character in every movie with a different name.
Yeah, they're all playing Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler. And they're all the same. Yeah, yes. I agree.
Although I think we've talked about before, Adam Sandler did a serious movie one time called Someone to Watch Over Me. It was moving. He was great. He did a great job.
Well, it's they got Happy Gilmore 2 coming out too, by the way.
Well, I'm standing in line waiting for a ticket. All right, so, hey, I was touching on this thing before the break. So saving kids. Listen, this is so huge. Story out of NBC that I pulled that came out in January of this year. This is what it's been like. The last 4 years, if you weren't on board with the trans agenda, then it was fair game on you. Like, for instance, federal prosecutors, the U.S. attorney's offices in Texas were going after a whistleblower who dared to call out the hospital that he worked for doing transgender surgeries on minors. And it's unbelievable that we had to do this, but prosecutors said that this 34-year-old surgeon, he took information, shared it with a conservative activist with an intent to cause malicious harm. They were the ones causing malicious harm. He's a whistleblower, and there were no protections. The U.S. Attorney's Office was going after him hard. And they did. Guess what? In January this year, they dropped the case. Reckon why that was so? Well, it was right before Trump took office. No sense pursuing it anymore, right? But what bugs me, though, is the one in the Northern District of Alabama. And I look at this and go, come on. But 1819 News had a story, came out in February. The Northern District of Alabama, the U.S. attorney and 3 assistant U.S. attorneys finally withdrew from a lawsuit challenging the state's transgender minor surgery ban. Now, I don't know. Maybe they were slow rolling it. I don't know. Maybe they weren't trying to pursue it hard. But I look at this and think, if you were given this case and told you had to prosecute it, you could also quit your job before you did it. Why'd you do it? Well, Phil, it was during the Biden administration. Well, this was a U.S. attorney that was appointed by Trump who hung on through the Biden years and then decided to go ahead and just keep pursuing a case against the vulnerable child bill, which the Supreme Court just finished saying that's okay. I look at it and think, man, you could have quit your job. But here's the thing, this ruling that came out yesterday is so incredible. I don't think there's many things that future generations are going to truly judge us on. But one of those things that I think that future generations may judge this generation on is, what did you do with the kids? I think there are things that are going to come out that happened during this 4-year span when the left was so rabidly progressive, rabidly seeking kids, that anything goes, and hospitals made money off of it, and insurance companies turned a blind eye to it, and legislators said this is okay, and suddenly coaches were letting guys into the girls' locker room, and it's madness. It's absolute madness. It's like there's a madness that took over part of our society, and they had somebody in the White House affirming it. That being said, I think those days are over. But we still have pockets of it. We're not done. But man, we made some strides this week. Townhall.com has a piece. Says Supreme Court of the United States says there is no constitutional right to abuse children. That is correct. So when I said a moment ago that what the Supreme Court decision did was not necessarily say no to these transgender surgeries and procedures, it just said yes to the idea that states can say something about it. But what they also did say no to is that there is no constitutional right to abuse a kid like this. They left it open to state interpretation. They left it, and I hate that, but it's still better than it was. Because just like with the abortion ruling, what happened now is you can go to work in your state level as opposed to the national level to get something done. So all of y'all out there who believe that this needs to change and you live in a state that has not changed it yet, you can work on it. You can work on it, and you can remind legislators they've been given carte blanche. They can stop hiding. They can stop quivering in the corners. They can stop worrying about their legacy. They can stop worrying about whether the Human Rights Campaign is going to fund their opponent in the next election. Just stop quivering and do the right thing. And you can do it at the state level now. By the way, Town Hall says you could hear the collective shriek from CNN to MSNBC to the activist enclaves at NPR and the New York Times. I love that. I love that. But yeah, Town Hall points out, over the last few years, somehow the land of the free and the home of the confused allowed TikTok influencers and activist doctors to march children down a path of permanent medical damage while calling it care. And that what SCOTUS affirmed is that by refusing to block Tennessee's law, and Alabama's really, the states can say no to the madness. They can put a pause on the rush to mutilate minors. They can draw a line that says you don't get to play Frankenstein with teenagers' bodies. And it's not about hate. It's about health. Look, and they even point out minors can't even get tattoos without parental consent. But there were some places where kids were getting transgender therapies and the parents didn't even know about it. They're getting counseling from trans affirming care, counselors in their schools. They're going to school and they're getting into a closet to change clothes with chest binders and all kinds of strange things and changing their name, and the teacher's the one supporting it, and the parents don't even know. This madness can stop now. It can. Alan Dershowitz, constitutional attorney, Fox News contributor, I've got a piece here on Daily Caller where he said this was actually a very easy decision. And he dropped the hammer on the liberal justices. Who'd you tell me? It was all three of the libs, right? It was Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson,
Kagan,
and Kagan.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he dropped the handle on them, or the hammer on them. He says that basically it's total hypocrisy. That the fact that they couldn't rule on this, and yet they ruled on other things about the age of consent for things like politics. It's the very idea that they couldn't make this a unanimous decision. Unbelievable.
It's a cult. It's a religion. They can't go against it. Just like I saw Cory Booker putting up a tweet about it today, talking about how he's disappointed in it. And I read it, and I was just reading it thinking, Cory Booker doesn't actually believe a single word he put in this.
No.
He does not actually believe it.
Cory Booker is Spartacus. Cory Booker is such a posture man. Everything he does, he's what in the Army we used to call a spotlight ranger. He's the guy that, hey, where's the commander? Oh, hey, sir, let me show you what I've got going on over here. That guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you speak out, they ostracize you. Look what they've done to John Fetterman just for simply saying he wants a strong border. He's all of a sudden like a right-wing, lunatic. It's like, So I guess people are scared to speak out because they're afraid their party will just alienate them.
Fetterman might have been the only Democrat senator too who also supported the Army parade the other day.
Yeah, well,
I'm all about it.
I'm still worried on Fetterman because he did vote against keeping men out of women's sports. So he's by no means a conservative.
He's not joining the Freedom Caucus anytime soon. A couple more pieces about saving kids, and then we'll go to the break. Trump's education secretary, Linda McMahon, she came out and just basically brought the heat. She said, here's what's going to happen. All you states out there who continue to infringe upon Title IX, and she made it very clear. Says, we do investigate. Our Office of Civil Rights investigates any of these allegations. If there's a finding, sometimes we can negotiate with a particular school, or we can turn it over to the Department of Justice to investigate further. Basically, what she's saying is, I'm not playing with you. I'm not going to screw around here. Guess what? If you got 16-year-old boys in the girls' locker room, you know what? You're going to have one chance to come clean about this and fix it, or I'm going to turn it over to the DOJ and we're going to prosecute it as a violation of Title IX. Whoop, whoop. What sound effect have you got for me? Some sound effect needs to give me a whoop whoop or something. That was worth it. Perfect. Last one I got is MSNBC. Phil, did you go to MSNBC? I did. MSNBC. When the Supreme Court upheld a ban on gender-affirming care for minors, no, I take it back. Let me change my voice. It'd be more like, when the Supreme Court upheld a ban. That's MSNBC's voice. Is that better? Is that more appropriate?
Like when the Supreme Court upheld this ban? Like
I should let you read it. You got that down.
It's because everybody in my age talks like that.
I've never understood the voice inflection. That's like, okay, stop it. Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett is now the enemy. But Justice Amy Coney Barrett went out of her way to explain why she thinks transgender people don't deserve protection. Says MSNBC, just slobbering on themselves while they wrote it. Her explanation came in a concurring opinion to Chief Justice John Roberts' majority opinion. All right, so the bottom line is the way it works is they have the judgment and then they have the opinion. And the lead opinion was written by Chief Justice John Roberts. But if you are one of the other justices and you weren't the one writing for the majority, but you want your specialized opinion to be heard on some aspect, then absolutely you can write a concurring opinion. In other words, you can write this, I concur, but I also want to say this. And that's what she did. And she wrote a concurring opinion listing multiple reasons why she thinks transgender people don't deserve to be given special class status. In the eyes of the law, special class status is when you make someone protected because of who they are or how they're born. What they're asking for here is for people to be transgender, be seen the same as someone who is pregnant, someone who is of a certain race. Please stop it. Anyway, bottom line is saving kids took a big old leap forward in the last 24 hours, and I'm loving it. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back, get some text messages, and see what y'all are thinking. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, last break of the day on a thankful Thursday. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Jim from Sullivan, Alabama says, Colonel, you're spot on. Newslink says it will take approximately 2 weeks to get all of our military in place. Also, this gave Trump another move without being forced to address Khomeini's threat that Iran would retaliate against the U.S., i.e., Trump put the move back on Iran by giving 2 more weeks to decide if they want to negotiate or become annihilated. Good text, Jim. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Real quick, the grades are in. John from Huntsville says Lee from Huntsville gets a solid A. Butters gets an A+ for his very strong spot-on performance. JP gets an A+ for his nearly perfect performance. However, today's winner is obviously the magnificent Phil Williams. Oh, I'm magnificent today with the perfect A+ because I gave him 20 extra credit points for saying that he doesn't really like Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, or Jim Carrey's acting skills, because I don't either, he says. By the way, JP, you think Oklahoma City Thunder can win with an NBA Finals tonight?
Unfortunately, probably, yeah.
We'll know more on JP on Sports tomorrow.
If they do, yeah, then no.
It'll be a thing.
Yeah.
All right, let me go to the phones real quick because Jeff Rowe from Indiana's on there. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Right now I'm moving fast, but
hey,
that remains yet to be seen if that's going to last.
Are you moving fast on the south side or the north side?
Regrettably, I'm on the south side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I had a feeling because like I said, I could hear the tone in your voice. All right, man. What do you think about all the stuff we talked about today?
Yeah. Hey, talking about the Iranians.
Yeah.
What worries me is they've already said that they have some nuclear material.
Yeah.
Weapons grade. I can't remember if they said 9 pounds or enough to make 9 bombs or what it was, but it was a significant amount already. But they just didn't have a way to put it together yet, I guess. Now,
go ahead.
I know that you don't have to be a rocket scientist and everything, but back in 1945, we had people with no computers, no CNC machines, everything was done by hand basically, and all your machine tools and everything. They put together 2 nuclear bombs back then, a crude nuclear bomb. So you can't tell me that they can't quickly put together some sort of device which basically you're just shooting one plutonium bullet into a pile, and it causes a reaction. How hard can that be to put together?
I don't know the answer to that. I tell you what, Tom Clancy wrote some amazing books, but he wrote one called The Sum of All Fears. And he took at one point, he took like 5 pages to step through what happens from the moment you trigger a nuclear device. And it was amazing. All the things that have to happen and fall in place a certain way, and the controlled explosion that then leads to the bigger explosion. So I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I heard. I didn't hear they had enough. I heard they had enough fissile material for a dirty bomb, but they did not have enough that was enriched to what they call 90% enrichment status, which would be enough for a nuclear device. They were about 60% on the average. And there's no reason for anybody who's doing purely civilian energy production to go to 60%. And that means they were pushing to 90%, and they were just weeks away from getting it there. So I heard they had enough fissile material that could have gotten to 90% within weeks to have made upwards of 9 to 11 bombs, is what I heard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the process it takes to enrich it that much, but or why it takes so long. But yeah, as far as dirty bombs and everything, I'm wondering where this material is, and are they trying to get it out of the country right now? I think I'm scared about what's going to happen to this material. Even if they overthrow the regime, this stuff could be already out of country, and who knows who has it.
There was actually about a minute left here to go, but there was actually a strange report I didn't get to today about Chinese planes that were tracked flying an unusual route into Iran that were not listed on any manifest. And these Chinese transport planes, some were speculating they were trying to get treasure and wealth out of the country for the Ayatollah to be able to vacate. Others were speculating they were trying to get enriched nuclear material out so that it couldn't be captured or found later. So I don't know, man. 30 seconds, buddy. What else you got?
Yeah, I mean that's what I say. The Chinese, these other nuclear nations, that are allowing these people to have to go ahead and do what they're doing, they could give them nuclear material if they wanted to. I mean, like I say, it's not a big secret anymore with as many nations that has nuclear weapons.
I would agree. Man, it's something to watch every single day. And yeah, by the way, top story on Fox News right now is that those China flights flying into Iran. Got to go, brother. Be safe on the road. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay.
Have a good one, Phil.
See you, buddy. That's Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, listen, I say it all the time, but I mean it every time. Thankful Thursday. Oh yeah, there are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.